This episode of the Downtown Rams podcast is brought to you by our proud sponsors, Thrive Fantasy, Built Bar, and ExpressVPN. Now, using promo code DTSN, our listeners can get $20 bonus cash on a deposit of at least $20 on Thrive Fantasy, 10% off their Built Bar protein bar order, and 35% off their ExpressVPN annual subscription. Once again, all you have to do is use the promo code DTSN and tell them the Downtown Rams podcast sent you. Now enjoy the show.
Aaron Donald creates the fumble. Goff goes crashing into the end zone.
It is intercepted by Jalen Ramsey.
Robert Wood, touchdown.
Picked off by John Johnson.
Touchdown, Tyler Higbee. Cooper Kupp plucks it out of the air.
Henderson with a good run and a first down. Still on his feet. Touchdown, Van Jefferson. Everett in stride. Wow!
LA will play for the Lombardi.
All right, guys, welcome back to Downtown Rams. As always, I'm your host, Alexis Kraft, joined here with my co-host, Jake Ellenbogen, and we are coming to you live after a Rams win. The Rams defeated the Seattle Seahawks wild card weekend with a score of 30-20 in Seattle. It was a crazy game, Jake. I mean, for starters, Wolford ended up starting at quarterback, which is what we kind of wanted going into the game. And then he got hurt off a nasty hit by Jamal Adams. Jared Goff ends up coming to the game, broken thumb and all, and we managed to pull off a win. Jake, what were your overall thoughts of this game?
Oh, man, I had so many thoughts. I apologize in advance because I'm a passionate fan, so my voice is gone. I was yelling a lot. I mean, there was a lot of, questionable decisions, questionable calls, questionable hits. This is a rivalry game, old school rivalry. It wasn't an old school score because it was 30-20, but I mean, this game is one of the most I think it was the craziest game, one of the craziest at least I've ever watched. I mean, talk about, starting John Wolford and having Goff as the backup, not having Bortles or Perkins as your, third or fourth option in case either of them go down was kind of confusing to me to have them inactive, especially, placing a guy like Raymond Calais on IR. I felt like they had some, room, but apparently not. But Cam Akers, what can you say about him? After last week, getting 1.6 yards per carry to go out and have a 4.7 effort, have 131 yards on the ground on 28 carries, really helped this offense, guide them in the right direction, including his 44-yard outburst on that, that designed quarterback, kind of, you're rolling him out and a bootleg and getting him on the run, Jared Goff being and just to have him, catch that and go down the sidelines, huge play there. But, all in all, the Rams just really played their best football game. And if you really think about it, it's one of the craziest games you'll ever see because the Rams played arguably their most complete football game on all three phases. And Jared Goff went 9 of 19 for 155 yards and a touchdown. And John Wolford left the game, and that's the guy that they basically were rallying around. That's the guy that they basically had taking all the first team snaps. That was the guy. I mean, they were game planning with him starting and Goff as the backup, with that thumb injury. So just to see everything and the way it came together was pretty amazing. Really glad Wolford was smiling in the locker room. That is a really good sign. He probably lost his chance at starting, unfortunately, the next game. I do think they'll probably roll with Jared Goff. But at the end of the day, just the fact that, he got hurt in this one and basically, Goff comes in and they rally around Jared Goff. And I mean, he didn't play super well, but when it mattered, he was able to make a few plays that really counted. You just have to give all the credit in the world to what the offense was able to do, rallying around, a guy with a broken thumb. The fact that this defense was just unbelievable. Talk about Aaron Donald's 2 sacks, Leonard Floyd's 2 sacks. Morgan Fox had a sack, and they had plenty of pressures. I don't know the pressure numbers offhand, but they were hitting the quarterback at will. Russell Wilson had guys all over him. Darius Williams with the pick 6 that really, I think, really changed the course of the game. Just a really nicely, well-read ball by Darius Williams. And then special teams, when you come up with that punch out on special teams, and I forget who it was, Alexis, maybe you might know, but Micah Kaiser came away with the fumble recovery. And again, that's all three phases. Now, special teams did give up a huge return on the kickoff to set up the Seattle Seahawks for that field goal in the second half. But, regardless, it went really weird because, Alexis, the whole time I was thinking, wow, this game is eerily similar to week 16. And we know how that went. And then Jared Goff is hurt in this game. In week 16, Jared Goff didn't get hurt until towards the end of the game. And you could argue they played better. So, I mean, it's just a wacky game. But, sometimes it comes down to just, who wants it more. And, with Aaron Donald, coming down with an injury, I think a lot of casual fans of the game that don't know, or, maybe even analysts that haven't done their homework on the Rams, thought that the Rams were going to falter. Their defense was going to fall apart. But, have a guy like Nick Scott come up with that huge pass breakup at the end. Greg Gaines, he was putting on the pressure. He came in immediately, showed up. Ashawn Robinson, I thought you got some really good contributions out of the linebacker group. So, I mean, it's just an all-around team win, team effort, and I came away really impressed.
Yeah, I mean, definitely there's multiple stories to this game, but I just think it was just such a weird and wacky game for a lot of different reasons. But, you talk about our defense, and they really stepped up. I mean, I don't know if I've seen a better performance from our defense all year. And I'm not even talking about obviously statistically, because I'm sure we could go back and we could find games where maybe they put up better numbers. But you talk about stepping up when your team needs you the most. I mean, our offense obviously was struggling, with the injuries and the quarterback situation and whatever, but our defense came through. Especially, Aaron Donald and Leonard Floyd. Aaron Donald got 2 sacks. Leonard Floyd got 2 sacks. Morgan Fox ended up getting a sack. And, Aaron Donald ended up getting injured and not coming back the rest of the game, which I know terrified everybody, especially me. I mean, thought I was going to have a heart attack. But he appeared to be okay. I mean, we're going to have to see what happens with Aaron Donald. I mean, my assumption, just based on what was said and what I saw, was it looked like a rib injury. I don't know what extent that is. I mean, thankfully, it doesn't appear that it was a punctured lung or anything, because I feel like if he would have punctured a lung, he probably wouldn't have been contemplating going back into the game, or they wouldn't have let him go back out there and run around on the sidelines. So that's good news, to say the least. But yeah, I was impressed with our team as a whole, but I think our defense, just as always, continued to show everybody why they're the number one defense in the NFL. I had people texting me who aren't Rams fans, friends of mine who are fans of other teams who don't really watch the Rams. And they texted me and said, man, I had no idea the Rams defense was like that. And I'm like, yeah, now everybody is getting to see what Rams fans sees all season, that our defense is the real deal. And there's a reason that they're number one in the league. I mean, it's not just Aaron Donald. It's not just Jalen Ramsey. Our entire defense steps up and plays well, which they obviously did this game. So that was good to see there. And Jake, I think we would be remiss if we didn't bring up the quarterback situation more in depth, because I know that's probably what everyone's wondering. I do want to say that John Wolford was back in the locker room after the game. So he did go to the hospital, which was just precautionary. And, he passed everything there, and he did go back to the locker room. And Sean McVay said that his injury was a stinger in the neck, which is very good news, that it's not a break. Because, obviously if it was a break, he'd be out the rest of the season. But I think that you're right. I think that Goff will start next week. I think that, with all that's been said about Jared Goff and the way that he's played, I think if anything, we have to give him credit for the toughness that he showed today. He showed mental and physical toughness going out there 12 days after surgery. Obviously not completely right. I mean, you could see the way that he was holding the ball. He was throwing the ball. There's no way. It's just his thumb obviously isn't back to normal. And so I think that we can all give him credit for that. I mean, mental and physical toughness doesn't equate to talent. But I think that there's no arguing that mentally and physically He's very tough, and I give him credit for that. And I do think that he deserves to start next week. I think that the momentum is with him. Wolford, we don't know if he's going to be a go next week. It's kind of looking like he might be, but he can certainly be available in a backup role. So I don't know if you have any additional thoughts on that, but I definitely think that Jared Goff is more than deserving of starting next week.
Yeah, and here's the interesting thing here is, while, I think a healthy Wolford is better to start, but I think also you have to think about the fact that, this team really rallied around Jared Goff. And when you have your leader go out there and, the guy making more than anybody, and he goes out there with, a broken thumb, and he's willing to stick it out, stick his neck on the line. And, say we will the touchdown, he's wide open. It's just a great play call by Sean McVay. But he made the throw. And, there were times in that game where it looked really bad. The first throw was like, oh no, this is awful. But it's really eerily similar. There were so many parallels in this game. I don't know if you caught. First and foremost, I will say that John Wolford taking over, for Jared Goff was like, when Vince Ferragamo came in for the broken hand or broken finger of Pat Hayden, who had started for 4 years for the Rams. So, that's interesting there. Another parallel, but this isn't to the Rams. This is to the New England Patriots, the year they won the Super Bowl against the Rams. A lot of people forget in the AFC Championship game, Drew Bledsoe came in for Tom Brady and actually sent them to the Super Bowl. So Tom Brady gets hurt, midway through the game, and Drew Bledsoe comes in, has a good game after, being benched. And, he comes in and he was the backup for that game, just like Goff was the backup for John Wolford in this game. And as we know, Drew Bledsoe was the starter that year, and Tom Brady took over after he went down. And, then they kind of stuck with Tom Brady. And it's not the same thing, but it's similar in the fact that, Goff came back and, kind of reclaimed his position there. Of course, they started Brady in the Super Bowl. We know where that went, but just kind of an interesting parallel. And another thing is, it's not entirely the same, but the year the Rams went to the Super Bowl in the 79 season that I was talking about with Vince Ferragamo, Jack Youngblood played through a serious injury. It was a broken leg, so it's a lot more serious than Aaron Donald is playing. But it would be really interesting if Aaron Donald ended up having like a serious rib injury, and just because he's such a competitor, he played through it like, Jack Youngblood did with his broken leg, and they went to the Super Bowl. I don't know. I just saw all those parallels, and I was like, wow, this is pretty weird. It's like, it's funny. You obviously, I mean, you and I were really young, but a lot of people forget like Bledsoe came in that year and took over for an injured Tom Brady. And sent them to the Super Bowl. So in this one, Goff comes in. He didn't wow me, but he did wow me in a sense. So his stats, I mean, 9 of 19, 155 yards and a touchdown. That's not wowing. But to me, I mean, I think it's wowing when you think about the context, and the context is needed here. Jared Goff came in. Clearly he wasn't 100%. He tried to throw the deep ball. He tried to make plays for his team, and ultimately he made a few more plays than what was needed, because the Rams won 30-20. And, he rallied around, that his defense was huge. I mean, I think it really goes to the fact that, kind of like what we were saying. And remember, I said, regardless if Goff or Wolford start, I still think they beat Seattle. I think the game's completely different with Wolford, and I think they still beat Seattle as well. The Wolford hit, I mean, at first I kind of felt like, yeah, you know what? I wouldn't toss him from the game. But I didn't like the hit, but maybe I wouldn't throw the flag. To looking back, Alexis, I definitely would have thrown the flag, and I may not have tossed out Jamal Adams out of that game because it was the elbow to the shoulder to the helmet instead of helmet to helmet. But I thought he definitely deserved to be penalized. And, there's a lot of football heads out there that will be like, well, that's not football. This is soft. And, they should just wear flags. And, what I would say to that is, look, okay, those penalties are put in there because of player safety. And so, at the end of the day, if you're trying to protect a guy, I mean, that should be the case for anybody. I mean, Wolford is clearly going down. He's already down. His shin is touching, his knee is touching.
Right.
And it's just, he's giving himself up. And, Jamal Adams doesn't need to come in and finish him off, And I felt like the Seahawks did that all game. There was one play, I don't know if you saw it, where, there's a really dirty play. The guy's on the ground, and the Seattle guy, I forget who it was, he's just punching away at his face, and there's not a penalty or anything thrown. So
I did see that. And that was, a shame that was missed by referees. And as far as the Wolford hit goes, it'd be totally different if him and Jamal Adams were both kind of on each other's level and both going down at the same time, and Jamal hit him with the shoulder and just got the better of the hit. But that wasn't the case. What happened is Wolford was already down, and Adams hit him. It wasn't a clean shot. It wasn't, at that point, as the referee said on the broadcast, Wolford was defenseless. So, it wasn't a fair shot. And I think that Adams definitely should have gotten the flag, and I expect that he'll be fined. I would be surprised if he didn't receive a fine. Maybe not, because his season is over. But I just want to talk about Jamal Adams said after the game that he's been playing with a torn left labrum and has been playing with 2 broken fingers on his left hand, and that he'll have to have 2 surgeries in the offseason. So do with that what you will. I think it's an excuse. I think it
sounds
bullshit.
like a measuring contest, if you ask me. You know what I'm talking about.
I think it's an excuse. Yeah, no, definitely. It's an excuse. And I don't like Jamal. I think Jamal, I'm not going to go off on what I think about Jamal Adams. But, I didn't like the hit. I don't like Jamal Adams. It is what it is. I didn't like the other hits done by the Seahawks players, especially the one that was punching. It looked like Juju Hughes maybe was the Rams player who was being hit. I couldn't see the name on the back of the jersey. I just saw the video. But yeah,
ridiculous.
It's a dirty game. It was a dirty game. I didn't like it. I mean, it is a rivalry game, so I'm not going to expect it to be not physical. It always is when it's a rivalry game, especially when it's in the playoffs and your season's on the line. But I don't think that calls for any dirty hits, and I certainly don't think that the hit on Wolford was accidental by any means. But the moral of the story is Wolford's okay. And again, up in the air whether he'll be cleared for next week or not. What I do want to understand is why there was no other quarterbacks active. I think that's inexcusable. And I
agree. And I think it could have cost them the game too.
It could have, and it's poor management. I don't know who makes that call. I don't know if it's ultimately McVay. I don't know if there's a lot of people involved. I think it varies by organization, but I just think it's inexcusable. I mean, I just think, we got lucky that Jared Goff went out there and did what he did. And I think part of that is because of Jared Goff, and part of that is just because the Seahawks played not well. And I think there's no reason why Blake Bortles or even Bryce Perkins couldn't have at least been on the sideline. Now, I'm not saying that they should have gone in over Jared Goff. I agree that if Wolford got hurt, the next person in should have been Jared Goff, but there should have been somebody else behind Jared Goff, because you put yourself in a situation that if his thumb gets worse and he starts not being able to completely grip the ball, or he gets a different injury, we would have lost. I mean, we would have had Johnny Hekker at quarterback. And Johnny Hekker is the greatest punter of all time, but I don't think he's an NFL starting, caliber quarterback. So that to me is a little worrisome why that didn't happen. And I know that McVay kind of tried to make the excuse after the game about it, but I don't know. I don't understand that, especially in a playoff game.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, you're just glad you won, because I don't think Sean McVay has a legitimate answer for that besides, well, we needed depth in other areas. But at the end of the day, it's just kind of a moot point when you come down to it. You always have to assume that anything can happen at any time. And I don't know. Here's the thing I find funny is that what it comes down to is that we had to hear all year about this Seattle Seahawks team. Let Russ cook, right? This team is unbelievable. I mean, let's just look at the schedule. This team, they go 12-4. Okay. They beat the Falcons. They scored 38. They put up 35 in that Prime time Sunday Night Football game against Cam Newton, the Patriots, comes down to the goal line. They put up 38 on Dallas. They put up 31 on Miami. They put up 26 or 27 on Minnesota. So they got 5-0. They go into the bye. Everyone's talking about them. They lose in overtime to Arizona. They put up 37 on San Francisco. And then all of a sudden, they have a 2-game losing streak, and the wheels start to somewhat fall off. They score 34 against Buffalo and lose. And then they lose to the Rams. And I feel like right around the Rams, that was when I started to see a change where their offense was no longer as explosive as it was earlier in the year. Earlier in the year, we're talking about Russell Wilson, 5 touchdowns and, MVP. But at the Rams game, 248 yards. The next game, he had 197 yards against Arizona in a hard-fought win. Philly, a game that they could have lost, he had 230 yards. The Giants, they lose at home, 263 yards. Wilson against the Jets in a 40-3 effort, he only had 206 yards. Washington, they hang on in Washington 20-15 against a guy that's not even on a football team right now that started that game. Dwayne Haskins, 121 passing yards against the Rams in week 16, 225 against San Francisco, 181. And then the playoffs here against the Rams, Russell Wilson throws for 174 yards. So I think it needs to be stressed that this offense started to regress, and the defense that was historically bad to start the season started to get better. And it's like we were saying, coming into this show, I've been saying it. I didn't think the Seahawks were that great. And this is not to discredit the Rams. This is to show you that their 12-4 record, they were a 9-7 football team that went 12-4. And the Rams right now, it's always weird, right? Because the Rams had, even the year they went to the Super Bowl, people forget, but they lost 2 straight. They lost to the Eagles and they lost to the Bears. And the first thing they did when that happened, everybody in the world was in panic mode. They had injuries. What are we going to do? Todd Gurley's hurt and all this. And they came back. They won the next game. And then they went on to go to the Super Bowl. And I'm not saying that's 100% going to happen, but it's very eerily similar to that season where you had, you lose to the Jets in a game where like everyone expected you to win, and then you lose to Seattle. I understand you don't get that. It doesn't work that way. You don't get the NFC West championship because you beat Seattle, but it is funny, isn't it? How it all came down to it. The Rams knew. Look, to be honest with you, in the second game, the Rams were up 6-3. Goff throws that ill-advised interception and changes the game. If he doesn't throw the interception, at worst, they're going to a 9-3 lead at halftime. At best, they could have gone up 13-3. So I think it was definitely telling in this game, that a banged up Jared Goff, the fact they started all week with Wolford, as the game plan and, building around him. These guys are banged up. Wolford leaves. Goff is like 60% in this game. He's got 3 pins in his thumb. And just the fact that, they lose Aaron Donald, you have Andrew Whitworth coming off injury, his first game back. There's just so much here, and Seattle has no excuse because they were fully healthy. And Russell Wilson, who we talk about is, future Hall of Famer, one of the best in the league, just didn't get it done against Jared Goff and 3-pin thumb Jared Goff. So, at the end of the day, the Rams did everything you could ask them to do. But if we're, calling this a fluke, Seattle got dominated. Like, I don't even think the score does not indicate the Rams dominated them. They beat them in total yards. They beat them in time of possession. And that was all with everything considering. So I'm just thoroughly impressed with Sean McVay's group. And I won't be surprised if they make a run. It sounds weird, but I said it on the AJ show that I started with Adam Grego today. I said, look, this team could literally be like Brian Billick's Ravens that beat the Giants in the Super Bowl right after the Rams Super Bowl against the Patriots. I do think they have the best defense in all football. I don't think it's close anymore. And I think it's so good that, like Brian Billick's defense, they were able to win the Super Bowl with a quarterback that held them back in Trent Dilfer. The Rams, I think, have 2 better quarterbacks, arguably 3 with Blake Bortles. And I would even say Bryce Perkins, with his mobility, probably makes him even more valuable than Dilfer. And they have a guy by the name of Cam Akers who had a game today. So, it's all coming together, I think. And it's week by week, obviously, when it comes to the playoffs, but you have to feel really good if you're a Rams fan after this, especially because it's a rivalry game. It's definitely salt in the wounds. And I mean, the Rams they dominated Seattle. They dominated Russell Wilson. They had to watch as Seattle celebrated winning the NFC West pretty much on the field right after they, lost to them. So, I mean, at the end of the day, they lost 2 games against the 49ers. They might not have dominated the division, but when it mattered, they've won. And so now, we'll see if the Bears win on Sunday, then the Rams will be playing. They'll be playing either the well, no, actually, if the Bears win on Sunday, then they'd play the winner of tonight. So, right now the Washington and Tampa game's going on, but that's who they would play. If the Bears lose to the Saints, then by virtue, they will play Green Bay as the lowest remaining seed there. So either way, the Rams are going to have to beat a really good football team. And obviously that defense is going to have a tough task with Aaron Rodgers. But, with the injuries and everything, obviously it's upsetting, but it's not the end of the world. They continue to rally through them. I think another week of Jared Goff, he'll look a little bit better, more comfortable. But also, Cooper Kupp checked out okay after the game. I wanted to bring that up. I don't know if you already did, but his knee was a contusion, and they said that he's going to be okay. So, a good sign there.
Yeah, I saw that his knee is good, which is obviously good news. And now we just hope that Aaron Donald is good to go. But and as crazy as it sounds, because Aaron Donald is such a generational player, if not the best defensive player ever in football.
Yeah.
And losing him is a huge loss. Our defense is so good that I'm going to miss having Aaron if he's unable to go, but I still have faith in our defense, which is good. And, obviously hope that he's good to go, and hopefully we'll hear more about what's going on here within the next few days. But yeah, I mean, and when we know who we're playing, which will be tomorrow, we'll obviously be able to put together our preview episode and really go over what we need to do. But for now, I just hope the Rams, get back to LA, they rest up, they take care of themselves, and get ready to go to work next week against whoever it is that we play. But overall, I'm very, very impressed with what the Rams did against the Seahawks today. I'm impressed that everybody stepped up, and I just think that Rams fans should be very happy right now that we have good momentum going into the next game.
Yeah, I mean, you really have to monitor throughout the week, and hope, that the coaches make the right decision. I'm glad that Wolford checked out okay. I think really at the end of the day, we're going to find out that a lot of these guys are probably going to be okay and will play. Donald is probably who I'm most worried about, but I'm just going to say this, you don't have to win them impressively. At the end of the day, I mean, the Rams won a game by 10 in this one, in which their quarterback had a broken thumb. So, I mean, if anybody has any questions, any doubts about this team, they should be answered today. Going up against a 12-4 team on the road. They're going to be on the road the rest of the way, unless, the Bears win. If the Bears win, then there's a chance that they could potentially host an NFC Championship game if they play the Bears. But that's it. So they're expecting to be on the road the rest of the way, and they haven't been great on the road. I believe they finished the season 4-4. So this is now 5-4, if you're including the playoffs, which puts them above 500. So it'll be interesting. But if anybody, is counting out this Rams team, it's not a homer thing. The Rams are a good football team. I think they could be borderline elite, when Goff is fully healthy, or they have, like Wolford, the way he played last week, which is such a bummer about him going down. But I just don't really have many questions for this team. They answered everything today. If they were a first-round exit, we'd have plenty of questions. We'd be sitting here like, why this, why that, whatever. But they moved on, and they moved on convincingly. It could have been by more. So, it's a wait-and-see approach from here on out. We'll see if the Rams go up against, Aaron Rodgers, or if the Rams go up against Taylor Heineke or Tom Brady. I mean, that's pretty much where we're at right now.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I'm excited for it. I know that obviously there's a lot on the line because it's the NFL playoffs, but it's always fun to watch, and it's especially playoffs at a time where you can watch teams that aren't your team and get invested. So that's good. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. I mean, I just think that Rams fans should sit with this feeling for the rest of the weekend. Be happy that we won. We can get back, on Monday into work mode and figuring out what we need to do, what the game plan is, especially once we know who we're going to play. But yeah, Rams won, guys. We are going to the divisional round of the playoffs. I'm putting all of my faith and my hope into Broken Thumb Goff. And I think that we have a chance to really prove a lot of people wrong, because I don't care what anyone says. The Rams were definitely, in other people's eyes, underdogs today. We really surprised a lot of people. But we will be back. We will be doing a preview episode once we know who we're playing, and we will break down what the Rams need to do, in our opinion, going into that game. But until then, everyone stay safe, take care, enjoy NFL playoff weekend. Stay safe, obviously, stay healthy. And until next time, go Rams. If you like what you hear, please like and subscribe at Downtown Rams. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Downtown Rams. You can follow me on Twitter at the Alexis Craft. You can follow Jake at JK Bogan DTSN. Until next time, stay safe and go Rams.